schools away from me.
That's the thing, because I had the choice of to say in my current secondary school, which is 79, all transferred to this school to mine was literally the first cohort, was literally 40 so it could have had a better start, let's put it that way. But to where we've got now, it's hands down one of the best, school I've ever. Yeah, no, I mean, like, you have to.
I think it's funny, we just instance of people that,
kind of preempt Ryan. So when people do the awards and they pick their awards, I was thinking we'd do it here. Like, so if you can see what it looks like on things.
There is a massive issue that needs to be solved.
Sorry.
And it's the same concept, whether it's instructional or medicine or healthcare. It's about us going in to replace your generation, essentially, or carry on what you say.
But it's their conversation, not ours.
Exactly, yeah. And the problem is that when, at the end of the day, it's like politics. You're deciding our futures, yet we have no influence over that, and it doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? And so this documentary, it's gone wild. I'm literally in the middle right into the debate, so hopefully, because the whole point I'm going to tell is that, can you explain the benefits of staying or whatever, or getting a deal with the and then for me, that's going to be something that probably looks like NBC or something. Because there's nothing like it. I mean, you might find a documentary that's really about friendship, but what about, I talk about like 9 different factors, including your workforce, which is international
Running late again.
resistance, skill shortages, just everything combined in one, but that's essentially what it's about. So, yeah, that is definitely something that I need to like. I mean, like, my first draft was done, but I want to make it the best it can be. Yeah, the trailer's like a concept trailer, but one of the
you need tables so you can't look straight up.
I used to be a final craft, then I went to the show and then I went to
I need to educate
the sponsors as well.
a lot of people like Final Cut.
That's right.
To be fair, it's good, but I feel like Premier because you can work with art.
Usman, I'm coming to your session. I've actually said to go on strike, I have to be in this session.
Yeah?
Like literally, I'm actually going to sit down in this session.
Yeah, I was always before like the family law like always started. I don't know, just sort of, and then I got my own.
Did you get influenced by Casey?
No, I mean Casey, he's quite good. Peter McKinnon now. Yeah, but it's sort of. I don't know, I wanted to use, always when you go somewhere, I use like presentation. Best one's usually a video or something like that. It's a way of just not talking and telling you what, showing you how stuff. And to be able to use that obviously a great equipment. I feel like it's going to be a bit. Thank you so much. Do you have LinkedIn or something?
I have, do it well.
Oh yeah, no, Instagram,
LinkedIn on screens.
I do that.
Right, hello. Welcome back to those that were in the previous session, and welcome to those that were elsewhere for the previous session. We are already 5 minutes late. We overran by 10 minutes to the last one, so I'm going to try and just catch back up with that time, because otherwise you won't get that alcohol that's promised at the end of the day until much later. So what we've got now are three speakers who are going to talk to us about broadening the talent pipeline. We have Usman Shah. Usman is the founder of Diversity Hut, which is a social enterprise which helps organisations get better at diversity through recruitment, retention and cultural change. We also have Nicole Dulieu, Research and Evaluation Manager for the Young Women's Trust, who's going to talk to us about some insights from some research that they've done with the University of Chester, looking at positive action measures and how it can be used to address gender segregation in apprenticeships. And we've got Matt Corbett, Director of the L&Q Foundation. Matt's been at L&Q since 2006, responsible for the L&Q Foundation and the L&Q Academy. And he's going to talk to us about, or he's interested in how housing associations can work in partnership to transform lives and communities. So we're going to just speak in turn. I'm going to shut up for the next 20 minutes or so. So Usman, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. You have to forgive me, my energy level was a bit low on fasting, and I also became a father last week, and thank you very much. So I slept at 6 a.m. in the morning, so if I do get my lines wrong, apologies in advance. So I'm going to talk to you about Diversity Hut, but before I do, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. So as you can see, I'm a brown guy. I'm a British, Muslim, Pakistani, and my parents were first generation here into the UK. And they came here with one main aim, and that was for the better education of their children. Now, I had free school dinners when I was growing up. My parents were very, very poor. And my parents always said to me, son, we're going to work really, really hard, save money, and send you to university so you can do us proud. Now, to a Pakistani family, to do them proud means you've got to be a doctor. Yeah? Honestly, I grew up and I used to say to my mum, dad, what do you want me to become? Doctor, son, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a doctor. And I said to my mum, dad one day, mum, dad, you know what? There's so many careers out there. Give me 3 options in life. And I'll try my hardest to do one of them. And my dad said, sit down, son, let me give you those 3 options. And if you do these 3 options, in my eyes, you're successful. And my dad goes to me, you either be a doctor, or doctor. And then so then what I did is I said to myself, you know what, I got my mind set on becoming a doctor. And I was in college, and what happened is a company that you might have heard of, Corbett Engineering Group, they came to my college and they offered work experience in construction to the students. Now, I'm from Newham. Newham is statistically the most diverse area in the world. 86% of the residents are ethnic minorities, and a lot of us are Asians, so a lot of us think we need to become doctors. And they said, who wants to go in construction? And no one put their hands up. So then what Corbett Engineering Group did, they waved the carrot to us and said, we're willing to pay you for it. Now, if someone said construction to my family, this is what they'd think of. Literally. And I said, right, you know what, I'm from a low-income background, they're paying me to do some work experience in construction. What the hell, I'll go and do it. I went and did a 4-week work placement at Corbett Group, 1 week in design, engineering, quantity surveying, and health and safety. It turned out I really, really liked quantity surveying. So I went home and I said to my mum, dad, I want to have a meeting with you guys. I have had a change of mind. I want to become a quantity surveyor. Now, my dad never heard of the term quantity surveyor before. And so what he did is he went and spoke to a couple of uncles, asked them. They had no idea what quantity surveying was either. But one of them typed it on Google Images, saw a couple of pictures of a couple of bricklayers, and said to my dad that your son's going to be a bricklayer. And my dad came to me and said, Usman, are you going to bring shame on the family? Yeah. What are people going to say about me as a parent? I came here, I worked so hard to see you become a doctor, and you're going to go out on construction? Now, what happened is, Corbett then took it a step further. They said, Usman, we're willing to pay for your degree if you go and study quantity surveying. We'll sponsor your degree. Now, to me, that was the calling in disguise. So I said, right, you know what? I'm going to go and become a quantity surveyor because I can go and say to my mum, dad, all that money you've ever saved in life, spend it for yourself, that's a gift from me to you. And let me go and find my way because they're willing to pay for my degree. And that's what happened. I joined Costain. I became a quantity surveyor, and I'm someone who comes up with a lot of wacky ideas. So I asked to leave quantity surveying after 2 years. I worked in innovation, performance management. But one thing I noticed was I was always one amongst a few. And I noticed that why am I the only brown guy in the room? Why aren't there much females in the room? And I started to ask a few questions. And then I said, can I lead diversity? And they said, yeah, you can do it as an add-on to your full-time job. I did that. And I had a lot of ideas. And for me to take those ideas into full speed, I had to take the leap. But before I did, I thought, let me try and be a bit entrepreneurial. And I asked Costain Group that I want to set up Diversity Hut. Can you support me? And what they did is they said, we'd support you for 1 year. For 1 year, you can go and set up Diversity Hut, see what you do. And after that, you can make a choice. January this year, I decided to go full-time on Diversity Hut. So I'm not supported by any organization now. And I'll talk to you a little bit about Diversity Hut now. So, Diversity Hut. We are a social enterprise. We reinvest our income back into the business. One thing I was asked once when I was presenting, that why don't you be a charity? And I said, look, putting a ethnic minority, a female, LGBTQ, disabled individual into employment is not a charitable thing to be doing. So I don't want to be a charity. So we're a certified social enterprise, and the chief exec is actually my mentor. We're also affiliated with BITC as a ARC business, a business that makes social impact. And earlier this year, I was selected by Virgin Startup to accelerate the growth of Diversity Hut by crowdfunding and make it into a national social enterprise. But what is Diversity Hut? So we work in two ways. The first is the brokerage. And what I did something different. When I used to go into all these conferences, everyone's saying there's a lack of diversity, there's a lack of diversity. I used to come out of Upton Park Station, look to right and left and see ethnic minority everywhere. And I'd say there's so much diversity. How can people say to me that there's no diversity? Something needs to be done. And all these recruitment companies are out there trying to help people secure employment. Why is there that ethnic minority gap? So I said something needs to be done. And what we do is we go to mosques, churches, synagogues, community centers, and we say, hey, after your Friday sermon, on your Sunday gathering, is it okay if I can get 5 minutes to talk about apprenticeship opportunities, graduate positions that are coming with XYZ employers? And every institution I've reached out has said, you're more than welcome, come along. We're so happy you just come and spoken to us. So we do that. We actually go into the communities and we go and talk to people. Now, if I go off with what I was told by the corporates that no one's interested, I think that's a load of, I'm not going to say the word, because every time I've gone and I've said, did you know the likes of Costain Engineering Group, Tideway, HS2, these companies want people like you? The first question I'm usually asked by ethnic minority is, what's a Costain? What's a HS2? But then when you start delving in what these companies are, what the roles, what roles they offer you, people are generally really, really interested, and they just need to be connected to, and that's what we do as Diversity Hut. And the second thing is cultural awareness and training. I go into organizations and I consult them on diversity, getting better at it, inclusivity, and we also have our own training modules, and they become award-winning training modules, and I'll talk to you about them later on in the slide. But I'll just talk to you about a few case studies. So this is Nawal Abdullah. She's a black, Muslim, female, now engineer. She always wanted to go into engineering, and she applied to many, many companies for engineering roles, got turned away. And then what happened with her is once she was turned away, she said, you know what, I have to go somewhere where I'm challenged. Engineering's not opening the arms for me. She went and she got a job at Harrods. So I call this story from Harrods to Hard Hat, because what happened is Tideway had an apprenticeship opportunity, passed it on to myself. I then went to all of my network and I said, look, this is a role out there. Can you find me someone that has a CV that matches this? I was given her CV. I worked with her for 1 hour only. She went and applied for the Tideway job. She's now an award-winning apprentice at Tideway. And what we've done so far is, since inception, which has been about 1.5 years ago, we've created 52 jobs for ethnic minorities. And these are people that are now employed And what I love most is 80% of the people that I've created jobs for before they were unemployed. And these people now have full-time employment. And I actually get calls from parents of young people saying, young man, who are you? Because our son actually brought bread and butter home for the first time. And that is why I said, you know what, I need to go diversity at full-time, because the warm, fuzzy feeling I get inside by helping people become successful, start a career, it's what diversity is all about. These are some of the companies that Diversity Hut's now working with. We're looking to grow that as we grow, and with Virgin Startup, Diversity Hut will be accelerated. And just a little bit about some successes that we've had. The World Congress of Muslim Philanthropists. As you know, that some Muslims around the world, the Dubai family, Qatar family, they're a bunch of billionaires. As Muslims, we have to give 2.5% of our wealth to charity every single year. If them guys gave 2.5% of their wealth to charities, it'll be like they won the lotto. So what they decided is, they said, we're going to go around the world and find entrepreneurs, enterprises that are doing great things and pump our money into their organizations if they've been running for 5 years. After 6 months of running, I was selected, and last year at the award ceremony, the awards awarded six individuals. 5 of them were royalties. I was the only non-royalty, and I was a recipient of the Community Engagement Award because of the impact that we've done. Their chief exec is very, very keen to grow Diversity Hut. And one of the main reasons why he's very keen is because of this. This is the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust. Last year, I was appointed a fellow. And I was appointed a fellow. What these guys do is they fund people to travel the world and look at an area which isn't looked into. And I said, I want to go and look in. I'm all about diversity and inclusion. I want to go and look into an area which isn't looked into, and that is, in the UK, the minority is black and Asian. However, in Dubai, Asia, Africa, that's not the problem. In Africa, your problem isn't how do we get black people into employment. It's about how do we retain Americans, the British, Europeans. So there's a whole different diversity problem. I said I want to turn the diversity problem on its head, and I want to go and research that. And I was selected on one condition. And they said, you're selected if you can prove to us that there's a demand around the world by companies saying, okay, in Dubai, why is our minority? What do we do to retain them? I wrote to various companies, and I was given responses back by Google, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. All these companies said, very interesting subject. And they've now funded me to travel the world. I've just done UAE, India, Pakistan, and I'm back here after a few months. I go to the States to explore diversity and inclusion, and my findings will be published. That's it. That's all about Diversity Hut. That's our Twitter handle, my email address if you want to contact. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about Diversity Hut. Thank you.
So thanks so much for that, and I'm really pleased to be here today. It's my birthday, but I'm talking about something I care about, which is gender. So I'm here on behalf of Young Women's Trust, which is a charity whose main mission is to support women aged 18 to 30. And we have 2 arms of the charity. One is policy research and campaigns, and I'll talk to you a bit about some of the research we've done. Another part of that is also to provide career coaching and CV feedback, and that's a critical step in getting more young women into areas where they're underrepresented, especially in terms of apprenticeships. So I'm here to talk to you about positive action, what it is, the research we've done about it, and most importantly, to talk to you about as employers, as how you can use it as a tool in one of your toolboxes to retain more women in the construction industry. And I'm working from a basis that we all think that we do need to get more women into these sectors. And before I start, I just wanted to ask how many people in the room have heard of positive action before you saw it downstairs? Okay, great. So I wanted to set out the some very real implications of trying to make it in a gendered industry. We met Glyn last year, who was an apprentice and started at the City and Guilds and really wanted to kind of make it work in this industry. And she was very excited when she first started her apprenticeship, but she said from the moment she stepped into the building site, she was automatically treated differently from the other apprentices. She was one of 2 women on the course out of 20, and she experienced a lot of sexist remarks from very small microaggressions like, give us a cup of tea, love, to, oh, you might break a nail. Slowly over time, this erodes her self-esteem and ended up meaning that she ended up terminating her apprenticeship early because she went to her course coordinator, said that there are these remarks going on, and he told her to stop being so emotional. So yes, what is positive action? Positive action is under section of 158 and 159 of the Equality Act, which states a person can be treated differently if they reasonably think that someone who has a protected characteristic may be suffering a disadvantage from that. So this scope is very contested, and there's an umbrella term that accounts for a wide range of measures, including targeted outreach, placing adverts in places where they might not be seen normally, and some forms of preferential treatment. Now, I really wanted to draw your attention to the fact that this is very different from positive discrimination, which achieves equality by outcome rather than opportunity. And I'll go into a case where this hasn't quite worked out so well recently. Section 159 under the Equality Act allows employers to take into these characteristics into account when they're recruiting and also when they're trying to retain people in their jobs. So if an employer reasonably thinks a group is underrepresented, they can take proportionate means, please note proportionate, to address that and make sure that that's more balanced. And I think this is very interesting because under this law, it's legally permissible to take into account people's characteristics, but as long as they're as qualified as others. So I've been involved with Professor Davis's research at the Young Women's Trust looking at STEM in apprenticeships, and we built this on from a previous report in 2016. And I've been delighted to be here and to do that because I'm a big believer in positive action and a staunch advocate of organisations using this as a tool to create a more diverse talent pool. This project was implemented in 2017. We collected data from 800 employees, 4,000 apprenticeships, 19 interviews with individual sector bodies, and 7 focus groups. So it was a massive project, really delving into what this is and actually how can we use it instead of using this as a legal term somewhere in the midst. What we found is a massive lack of clarity about what it is, and also a complete understanding of what the law is, and people be very scared to actually use this and put this in practice. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard of Matthew Furlong, but this is a case of the Cheshire Police recently who've been found to unlawfully discriminate against a white heterosexual male for putting in positive action measures in place. I bring him up here because he's the first person in the country who's been found to have been discriminated against unlawfully. And this is through a positive action program that they put in place to try and diversify their workforce and get more black and minority ethnic officers into the case. He was told by the force he could not have done more in his application, but he wasn't chosen for the job. As you can see, this is obviously a very tabloid editor's dream to have a white heterosexual male complain about a diversity practice. And he got a lot of judgment, but he was turned away because of this, and because they classified every single person who'd passed these tests as being equally qualified, which isn't actually the case. His lawyers said that this is the first reported case in his kind, and positive action has been used in a discriminatory way. Obviously, some of the reporting in the press hasn't been very helpful in explaining how to actually put this into practice properly, other than we know that that was illegal. So the key learning from this is you can use positive action to maybe level the playing field, but you can't use it to take people off the playing field altogether. So we found in this research, obviously, a fear of liability, feel that this might denigrate merit, and also a lack of awareness. We also spoke to small and medium enterprises, because I know that's a big issue in terms of trying to put more practices in place and people coming back to us and saying they don't have the right resources. What we did find, though, was that they're generally favourable to putting more diversity practices in place and more generally trying to get more women into this area. In principle, people are on board, but they perceive positive action to be a major cost and a resource barrier. Interestingly, they said to us, if the government made this an issue, or if they prioritised this, gave us more guidance and actually put, targets in place, we would do it, but they're not going to. So we're not. Since this report has come out, EHRC have put guidance in place, and in some areas, like diversity targets are being put into place. So London's General Assembly is starting to try and diversify its workforce by targeting specific groups of people. We also asked young people what are their preferential treatments in terms of how recruiting and retention more women into construction, engineering, and IT apprenticeships could work. Young people interviewed in this survey thought the work experience schemes, advertising, and women's mentoring and support networks would be most effective. What's interesting here is that young men, on average, didn't feel very supportive of doing positive action measures, and perhaps were especially unhappy with the idea of workplace open days. And this is quite unfortunate because this is a very easy way that you can make your workplaces literally more accessible to young women to get them into the workforce. We've also seen some examples of some really good practice. I'm sorry for our quite orange branding, but I'll leave you to look through this for a minute. But essentially, there's some very simple things that you can put in place to make your workforce seem less gendered or more open to different diverse groups of people. And because we're here today to promote the construction industry and to engaging and better reflecting the communities that they're working in, I really wanted to give everyone 5 things that they can put in place right now that could actually make a massive difference, not only on the working culture, to make it more easy for women to stay within the practice, but also promote greater diversity. So, first things first, you can check the language in your job adverts. There's been a lot of research into this that shows, I think WISE have done some research to see that job adverts with words like exhaustive, fearless, put young women off, whereas phrases like transparent and catalyst put women back into the playing field. Interesting, some of the most innovative women that they spoke to also didn't see themselves as innovators. They saw themselves as problem solvers. Just checking those job adverts with different members of staff would actually really help to try and get more people in place. Secondly, unsurprisingly, recruiters hire people who look like them. Simple things you can do is get women into those interview panels from the start. You're more likely to then recruit women into these areas. Interviews with young people and also with the businesses found that initiatives could be introduced as early as possible, so in schools, and I think this will be touched on in other ways, of how to establish norms and break down what means a man's work and what's a woman's work. Providing women with role models in a traditionally male-dominated area and engaging them with subjects is increasingly likely to increase the number of women applying for jobs in these sectors. And then EHRC have also found that half of working mothers have reported discrimination from their managers when they've asked for flexible working. Now, women reported them being sort of a price to pay or not being given the same development opportunities as their male colleagues when this happens. Yet women continue to shoulder the main responsibility for childcare, and even in households where both parents work full-time, more women provide care and so opt to work part-time. I know we've had a panel on this, so I'm not going to go too much into that. But taking action to provide flexible working options at all levels will really increase opportunities for women. And this is particularly important for women returning from maternity leave or adoption leave. It'll also widen the pool of talent available to employers, particularly for women, but also for fathers who want to seek greater work-life balance. So we've also made some recommendations at government level and the sector level for guidance. We've met with MPs. We're trying to really bring people together to talk about this. And it's fantastic there's so many people here today who want to diversify their workforce. And it is great to discuss these issues, but we've done this for a long time. We've had a lot of discussions. There's been loads of conferences, and this issue is too slow to change. So what I think really needs to happen today is for each and every one of us to take just one of those points that I made earlier and actually bring it back to your work and put it in place so we can actually broaden the talent pipeline. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Matt Corbett from L&Q, L&Q Housing Group. L&Q is one of the largest housing association in London and the South East. It's just a little bit of background, 100,000 homes with a desire to create 100,000 more homes over the next 10 years. So it's a large operation. We have also committed alongside our physical legacy, like a social legacy. So like many housing associations, we're far more about than bricks and mortar. We're a charitable housing association, so our commitment to our communities goes far more beyond our buildings. So in terms of over the next 10 years, we intend to spend around 10 million each year on community activities, and we do this through our foundation that we created in 2011 when we brought all our community programs together. So there's our background, there's where we operate. We operate in London and the South East, as I said, 100,000 homes with a desire to build another 100,000 over the next 10 years. We obviously work with lots of communities, so we are passionate about this agenda, and it's a constant agenda item for us, try and diversify our workforce and create opportunities. This is the vision for our foundation. So no one should be denied the opportunity to achieve their potential because of where they live. So that's what drives us in the foundation. As I say, each year we invest about 10 million in community programs. So how our strategy and how we do that is around, we went out in 2016, did some primary research with Ipsos Mori, talked to a lot of our stakeholders, to the people who live in our homes and all our partners we work with, and we identified 3 problems or 3 challenges that were faced by the communities that we serve. And these problems were vulnerability, so a growing level of vulnerability in the homes we let, and people who live in our homes. The average age of the person living in our homes is 51. Those of you know social housing, they may have entered with some vulnerabilities anyway, so it was probably going to get worse as time went on. So a growing older population, qualifications issues, many people have a long history of being unemployed or out of work. The other challenge we thought around to focus on was a sense of place. We live in we work in very, very diverse, hyper-diverse areas, and that can be diversity of tenure, can diversity of ethnicity. That's something that created a sense of place and a sense of community was a real challenge for us, and also around social mobility. Lots of the people and lots of the residents we spoke to were really worried about young people coming through and what was going to happen to them. And they felt social mobility or chances for their children were diminished and getting worse. So those are the 3 problems we identified that we thought L&Q, as a large charitable housing association, could do something about, could have an impact on. We couldn't change everything, but we could put a dent in some of those things as a big organisation. Okay, so those problems, we corresponded to those problems to create 3 strategic programmes, and we called these Independent Lives, Successful Places, and Being Socially Responsible. So I'm going to focus mainly on the Successful Places one that's kind of most germane to what we're talking about today. But just in terms of context, Independent Lives for us is about making people sure their tenancies with us are stable. So this could be around debt and money management and support. It's also our employment offer. So each year we help hundreds of people get back into work or get into better work, because in-work poverty is clearly an issue for lots of our residents. We often speak to people who've been in the same entry-level job for many, many years, or doing 2 or 3 jobs to sustain their lifestyle, travelling long distances. That's what we notice. So each year we help people get back into work and do brokerage. This year, the financial year that's just gone, we helped over 600 people, including around 60 apprenticeships in that programme as well. So quite a big employment programme, an employment support programme. Socially responsible. This is about L&Q as an ethical organisation. We're a charitable housing association. We want to remain true to our purpose, our social purpose. So it's about working with our supply chain partners to ensure there's as many opportunities as we can get for our communities to maximise the social impact we can get from our supply chain. So that's about us as a large organisation working with our partners who share our values. And then Successful Places, which is around community engagement. And this is more aspirational things and around increasing opportunity in the communities where we work. So I just want to go into a little bit of some of the programmes that we've done. Okay, so as I say, 10 million a year, lots of community programmes, lots of those focus on aspiration and increasing people's opportunities in the workforce and raising aspiration. In terms of the L&Q Academy, we have an L&Q Academy. We also invest around 5 million in that a year to create apprenticeships opportunities and graduate opportunities. So in terms of the L&Q Academy, things that we noticed, when we worked with young people who live in our communities and our homes, we noticed some of them were already in a heavy amount of debt. So, giving them a very low apprenticeship wage was a real challenge. They came to us with lots of secondary issues already made, holding down an apprenticeship with us or our supply chain partners a real challenge. So we had to do a lot of support work with those apprenticeship applicants before we even got them into roles. And we continue to work about that. So the pre-employment work is really important to us. If we're going to get the opportunities for our residents and our communities, we're going to need to do more to get them in the door. So we recognise about programmes around pre-employment support were crucial for that. And one of our first programmes around it was caretakers. So we'd always had a shortage of caretakers. We wanted some young people to work in that area. And we noticed when we appealed to people, they really had lots of challenging scenarios. And keeping people on track was a real challenge. And we had to do more pastoral care than was normal. So that's one of the examples through the L&Q Academy. Independent Lives programme, as I mentioned before, we get about 600 people into work a year. We continue to expand that programme. Again, We have lots of programs that wrap around support. So we have a team of direct support caseworkers who work directly with people. And what they often say is, oh, we need a specific intervention, or we need this intervention to support this group of people to increase their opportunities. We've got in-work poverty. So we did a project with Women Like Us to support that. Another project we're doing that we've recently finished was a project with gingerbread. We noticed from research with York University that we did that lots of women had multiple barriers for getting back into work. Childcare was obviously a big issue, and we worked with gingerbread to find strategies for women who live in our houses about ways they could get close to the labour market. It wasn't our intention to get anyone, compel people to get back in the labour market or to get employment, but it was about moving them, those who wanted to, moving them closer to employment and opportunities. So we worked with Gingerbread. I'm sure most of you know Gingerbread as an organisation. We worked with them on a project called Empowering You. Just in terms of scholarships, we have a scholarship programme. So every year we give around a £20,000 scholarship for people who want to go to university, 10 people who live in our homes. It's called the Turlough O'Brien Scholarship Programme. Again, we really wanted to do something around that and university entrance, and we noticed that it was very popular amongst the people when we talked to residents on our residents committee who was engaged with our organisation. They were very positive about that, so we introduced the University Scholarships Programme, which was quite a generous offer with a paid internship over summer, so people would come and find out what a housing association is as an employer. And just the final one I'll talk about is Learning to Succeed. I don't know whether anyone from the Construction Youth Trust is here today. Maybe, oh, right, there you go. So that's good. So I'm going to talk about this. So this is a 1.3 million programme we've done with the Construction Youth Trust. And we'd always wanted to work with the educational sector because schools, like housing associations, are anchors in their communities. They're not going anywhere. They've got a long-term commitment to the area. But we found the educational sector quite a challenge at times to engage in, but we stuck with it because we thought that they're community partners like us, so they're an important partner for us. So we stuck with that, and now we've got a partnership with Construction Youth Trust where we work with 30 schools across London, and these are schools that we know have large intakes of our young people in those schools. So we work with 30 schools across London, and we do careers advice, and we introduce the idea of considering a career in the built environment, and lots of sessions around that, and improving young people's choices so they can make more informed choices about whether they consider an opportunity in the built environment, which many of them, just as people have said earlier, their first perception is that it's all about muddy boots and hard hats. But as an organisation that works in the built environment, we're able to say, look, there's millions of opportunities in the in the built environment, whether it's marketing, accounts, quantity, surveying. There's loads of roles. It's not just those old tropes around, oh, well, no one wants to work in construction. So it's a real opportunity for us to try and dispel those myths and create and give them an impression of what a vibrant, exciting sector the built environment is. So we work in 30 schools with Learning to Succeed. It's one of our flagship programmes. And as I say, we work in partnership with Construction Youth Trust. And that's about it from me. I'm conscious of time, and I know there's plenty of questions. Well, hopefully there will be. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Right. So I think what I've heard is that if we're broadening the talent pipeline, we don't want to try and squeeze everybody in that same small pipeline, that perhaps a bit more of individualisation of programmes is what's working for people. So let me open it up to the floor. Who has questions for our three great speakers? Raise your hand and then wait for the microphone. Utter silence. Oh, thank you. The microphone's just coming to you.
Thank you. My question is really centering around, I'm very new to the construction industry, and my focus is community engagement. And how hard has it been, Usman, for you to get into that construction industry and get out and get, how can I put it, your construction company to sanction what you do? Because I'm doing something very similar at the moment with my company, and trust me, if people don't understand what you do, it's incredibly difficult. So I'm asking, you're the main man. Give us some hints and tips.
Cool. Very interesting question. What I found is a lot of these organisations that I went to, mosques, churches, synagogues, various community centres, they were really, really amazed that I was coming from an organisation. I was probably the first person that came from the construction industry to them. And even for me to get to that stage, I had to do a lot of internal convincing to a lot of So like managers and seniors, look, I need to go do this, and they're like, Usman, we need to see some deliverables.
Tangible benefits.
Pardon?
Tangible benefits.
Tangible benefits is the right way to put it. And of course, these things don't happen straight away, because if you go in front of people that have no idea about what the industry is, you've got to educate them, you've got to build a relationship with them, and you can't go and work wonders on your first visit. So you have to go a few times. And what I found was it was working, but for me to make more of an impact, I had to actually go and step aside and go diversity at full time, because then I didn't really have that limitation that, all right, you know what, you got a day job to be doing as well. And that's what I found. And my challenge to the organisations over here is, how much do you go and connect with the community centres in your local area? And a lot of organisations don't do it. And although it's really, really easy to do, organisations aren't doing it.
Thank you. Can you speak to my boss, please?
Cool.
Nicole, perhaps you'd like to address that as well.
Yeah,
The perception of construction is not one that's welcoming for women.
No, I think it's quite important to be able to get buy-in from all levels. I think without going to your boss and explaining what the benefits are, you're not going to be able to go out into the communities. But at the same time, if we don't do that, you're going to have the same people applying for the same types of jobs. Until you change those perceptions and change those stereotypes, or even just show that, look, there are people who look like you in these industries, it's not going to change.
Any more questions? Yes, please. Can we have a microphone at the front, please? Quick, quick. Just this lady with the white jacket on.
If you want to stack them up, then I can see what I guess next.
Thanks, Anand. So I've got a question for all three of you, actually. It's what do you, in your experience, have? What's the biggest barrier when you're talking to people? One is obviously the image of construction. I get that. What other barrier is there to actually achieve a place where we just don't need these sessions anymore?
Yep. What I found is within the industry, not just our industry, within various industries, there's a lot of talk the talk. People go and say that we've got a problem. I went to one organisation, no names mentioned. I went to the organisation and I said, we should work together 100%, because they were always crying about diversity. And I said, can I have some roles, please? And they said, we've got no roles. I mean, how are you crying about diversity if you're not willing to employ people? So what I found is there's a lot of crying very loudly, oh, there's a problem, what do? We need solutions. But there's not that interest in companies. When you go and put CVs on the tables, they're not that interested. So I think organisations really, really got to stand up and start walking the walk as well. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on from that. I've got kind of three things. Firstly is companies do say that resource is an issue, but I think it depends on how much you're willing to commit to the longer term impacts and the benefits that can have for your company. Secondly, there's confusion around what you can do. There's a lack of guidance, or whether there is guidance. It's very academic. People don't put it into practice. So I think that needs to be taken on board. There is stuff available. We've done some work. The University of Chester's done some work. HRC has done some work. But how do you use that? And then thirdly, it's around the culture and actually wanting to change that and get more people into place. I think I spoke to the National Training Federation for Wales, and they were saying, we really want to get more women into the construction apprenticeships in Wales. And I was like, great. What are their barriers? And they looked at me blankly, and I was like, how would you get to an apprenticeship? And everyone has to be able to drive there. But without having that understanding of you need to support women to be able to drive, to get to them, you're not going to be able to take part in this apprenticeship in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point's been well made that there's lots of multiple barriers. I mean, but the client group that we predominantly that I work with is the people living in the homes we serve. So construction is important to us, but I think for the foundation, it's mainly trying to increase economic activity. So kind of it comes secondly, really. Moving people into economic activities first, and then construction as an opportunity is second to that, really. But in terms of, a lot of it is perception. I mean, particularly when working with schools, it does seem to still be teachers are just saying, construction, or if you don't do well, you end up in construction. I mean, that was some of the phrases that have been used. People have said to me, So I mean, and I think someone earlier said, the teaching staff, So what we found from our Learn to Succeed programme is that, I think teachers' perceptions have been changed by having so many of our staff who are in quite senior jobs, whether that's in director of treasury or something like, going into schools and saying, I work, the construction industry, the built environment, look at my role. It's not, And the teachers are like, yeah, that's not what I thought was going on. You know, so that's quite interesting as well, I think. Yeah.
I think that's, I'll just add on to that, sorry, very, very quickly. So clearly I can see, it's kind of reinforced what I think is the problem as well, is lack of looking at leaders who are doing, you know, working with the government, as you said, the Treasury, or traveling abroad, going on projects, which is doing interesting stuff. I just heard how BAM Nuttall are doing this amazing project in the South Pole, so which, you know, we don't get to hear so much. And also, how do you see more BAME people as leaders? Usman, don't you think when you're going to Newham and you're speaking to a girl in one of the school, who is she looking at? So that's, we need to really address that, right?
Yeah. We've got a question at the back, and then we've got another lady at the front. So let's take the one at the back first.
Afternoon, everyone. Sharon Field, FM Conway, and I'm Head of Corporate Social Responsibility, and I'm 100% dedicated to working with the communities, schools, prisons, you know, a whole remit of everything. I just wondered, and you did partly answer it a moment ago, is that I think we need to spend more time educating the educators and the careers advisors, because we are all spending an awful lot of time going into schools, taking apprentices into schools and fighting a battle. The schools have got targets now, so I was invited in to a grammar school. This is only a few weeks ago, and when I walked through the door I was told I wasn't allowed to talk about apprentices. I was only supposed to talk about going to university, because that is what the parents of the students at that school would want me to do. So I obviously didn't. I just rebelled, because that's what I like to do. So it was really good fun for me, and I had a great day. But interestingly, I was back at that school the following week.
They let you back?
Yeah, they did let me back in. I was quite surprised. But I just wondered if anybody else had faced those barriers. Again, I've had different experiences at different schools, right across the board with different age groups. But I find the teachers, the careers advisors are the main issue, actually not the students. They want to hear about it, the parents want to hear about it, but they're only being fed the information the school thinks they need to hear, not everything.
Yeah, I'm seeing nods in the room. But if you're working in that space and that's your experience as well, just maybe raise your hand. Oh my goodness, look at that. Yes, yeah. I think the challenge is that teachers follow a particular career path, and that's what they're used to, and it involves A-levels and education and university, and you know what you know, don't you? But anyone on the panel want to address that point?
I think also the amount that you're valuing apprentices. I mean, the apprenticeship minimum wage was what, £3.40? Helps devalue that as well, because people don't see that as a viable option. You can't live on that very easily if you're not supported elsewhere. I think that's something that does need to be addressed, and we're working to try and challenge that.
Yeah. Matt, do you want to jump in?
No, I think that's a point well made, yeah. I mean, I think aspiration is relative as well, isn't it? That, you know, if you're from a family where there's just not much work going on, then, you know, getting some form of steady employment, whatever that may be, is a success for some young people in those homes, yeah.
Exactly. Brilliant. And we had a lady at the front who has now got a microphone. Hurrah.
Thank you. My name's Denise Cherry. I'm from the roofing industry. My question is to Matt. You've obviously done some really good work and got some really good outputs.
Thanks.
Do you think that that's because social housing has a particular focus on community that perhaps mainstream construction doesn't have?
Oh, that's I mean, that's a tricky one, because you could then sort of criticise other organisations, couldn't you? But there's as a charitable organisation, there's you know, it's in the DNA. You know, we you know, our surpluses go back into our communities. That's it. You know, that's our job, to get that money back into either homes or communities.
Is there a job of work to be done to make more of what is happening in social housing, so it can be spread out further?
Yeah, probably, but I couldn't answer that one, really. Yeah. Probably, yeah.
We've got one question at the front, and then I've been told to wrap up. Yep. Very quick question, please.
One for Usman, really. I know you said you've gone into mosques and community engagement where people didn't know about construction. How important is it to celebrate the real power behind, or the cogwheels behind the successes? Because very often when people go to awards like this, you really see the suits and ties that didn't really do the work. But the people that really do the work are not really being celebrated. And I'm looking, if I do amazing work, I want my son to see that. And it has a bearing on him and his friends, because he will go on into school and speak about me and inspire other people.
I think what the industry really needs is role models, and we within organisations, we have a lot of great people and we don't celebrate them, and these people need to be celebrated. What I found is when I go to mosques and I see a lot of brown kids, they look at me and say, oh, this guy's done it, maybe I can do it too. They don't have that role model, and I can relate with those brown kids, but the thing is, if you go to an area where there's a lot of females, a lot of black individuals, you got to find people that they can relate to. You got to find people that speak their kind of dialect, their accent, for example, and visually relate to them as well. Because if you sit in a seat and say, that person looks like me, they've done it, if they've done it, I can do it too. I went to a school in Birmingham, and I spoke about the industry, and I got a phone call back, and the teachers that invited me said that they had complaints from Asian parents saying that a brown lad has come and he's brainwashed our kids about engineering and construction. So I said to them, hold fire, is there any way that you can get me in front of those parents? And they said, we've got a school where we have 98% black and minority ethnic, only 19% go to university. I said, you know what, you really got to get me back in. When I went, I noticed that a lot of the parents, they were very, very alarmed to see a brown guy that's doing really well in the industry. And then what I did is I spoke in Urdu, Hindi, Punjabi, I spoke in their languages, and I said, look, if I've done it, your son can do it too. And then we had about 19 kids that are now doing apprenticeships within engineering and construction. And it was only from giving 1 hour. So I think the industry needs role models. I think we have a lot of great people. They don't get celebrated. Normally we have people from the top of organizations. Down below is where you have the real hard workers, the people that need to be celebrated. And we got to get them out there, and we got to go celebrate them.
And just in one thing on defence of teachers, I mean, when I spoke to these, they said to me, a lot of the kids whose background was construction, a lot of the kids are saying, oh, I don't need to try, I'm just going to work for my dad. Do you know, who's a roofer or something, you know, and they didn't realise that they actually needed qualifications. They did, oh, I'll just go and work for my dad, he's a roofer, scaffolder, whatever, that's me done, I don't need to try. And the teacher was like, that's what I'm up against, you know. So it was a different voice to you know.
Well, in the spirit of celebrating, please will you join me in thanking our panel, Usman, Nicole and Matt. I think I'm handing over to Alistair.
Thank you, Rana, not only for this afternoon session, but for everything you've done as a leader in this agenda for the industry. I've got a slight housekeeping thing. It's a slightly unusual one, causing a health and safety issue on the far side of the room as well. If anyone has found a train ticket, I know, so I said it was unusual. Basically, one of you isn't getting home tonight if we don't find this train ticket. So if you have found a Winchester train ticket lying around, if you could let us know, and it will assist that individual to get home tonight. So we'll let the other delegates come in, and then we'll move on to the final session of the afternoon.